Juniors is a FNAF fan game originally directed and led by Romanov, but later taken over by Derek. Junior centers around an investigator coming across this spirit named Pallbear. At the same time, there's a ghost girl in the Junior's pizzeria haunting the animatronics. The investigator and Pallbear must figure out exactly what the hell is going on. This fan game has had a lot of setbacks, especially when it came to release. All thanks in part to the Pear controversy from 2022, which I've detailed before in my iceberg videos, so I'm not going to go over it here. It was honestly surprising the game was ever released, and it turned out this game would have a mixed reception. A lot of people loved this game, but a lot of people straight up didn't like it at all, and if I have to be honest, I fall under that ladder. I don't like this game, and you'll see why in this fan game review. Keep in mind that this is all my personal opinion, and if you disagree, that's completely okay. My opinions are only opinions and purely subjective. I'm not trying to be objective in this video. As well, be sure to subscribe down below and turn on the notification bell. Totally optional, but it'd be appreciated if you did. Well, without further ado, let's get straight into what I think is the most overrated Five Nights at Freddy's fan game of all time. Okay, so I just want to get the only positives I have for this game out of the way before I truly get to my problems with this game. First of all, I think the visuals in this game are extremely well crafted and impressive. They went all out on the visuals of this game and it all looks nice. I also especially like how the cameras are green night vision-esque cameras. It helps sell the 80s to 90s vibes and that touch is nice. I also really like the character designs in this game. They all look so detailed and terrifying and all had a bunch of potential. These look monstrous and I like that approach. A lot of effort was put into these designs and you can tell. I think my favorite is Bonnie's. Also, I like how they switch up Chica's to be centered around sleeping and not eating. It's a unique spin on the character. I also find it interesting but also sort of weird that Balloon Boy was changed into a balloon baby. Huh. Another thing, the soundtrack and sound design is well done. It is composed so well and gives some atmosphere to certain parts of the game. It gives the game some flavor. My favorite track of all is the London Bridge music during Night 6. I love how it's a semi-remixed version of the FNAF 2 trailer. It goes hard. This game also had an interesting concept. I love the premise of a spirit haunting normal animatronics and you need to guess which one it is. That is great. Too bad that the execution is something I can't say the same about. In terms of other positives, Mangle being the final boss instead of someone like Golden Freddy or Springtrap was a unique twist, I guess, and the ghost girl on the monitors on Night 6 was kind of creepy. Yeah, that's it. This game has huge problems. I'm going to start off by saying that yes, patches for this game did come out, and it did fix the cheesing methods and bugs that were originally in the game. That's cool, but the gameplay and story are still both extremely flawed, both conceptually and in execution, and the pre-patch of the game was still extremely embarrassing. To start off, let's talk about the main gameplay. As I already stated, the gameplay from nights 1 to 5 is centered around you trying to figure out which of the main animatronics is haunted by the ghost girl. Meanwhile, you must keep the animatronics at high stability, and if they're not haunted, must be sent off for the conveyor belt to be repaired. Now again, this gameplay has good ideas, but it fucks up so hard. The gameplay is a hot mess. The biggest issue with this gameplay is that it's all too damn confusing and it feels disjointed. What do I mean? Well, all the tips and instructions you're ever given regarding the animatronics are too vague, so much that they won't help. It then becomes a frustrating playthrough of multiple hours in one night just so you can understand what you're doing. The biggest example was the handprints. The game words it all like the handprints appear when the haunted animatronic is in the room with it, but no, it's if they leave the room and leave the handprint behind. For a lot of the game, the clues for who the haunted animatronic is are either too damn small or too damn obvious. And the worst part of all in regards to this vague gameplay is that once you do finally understand how to play, it either becomes too easy, too boring, or even too frustrating and annoying. Why for the latter? Well, my friends, RNG is in this game and it kills any enjoyment you can have from it. Yes, RNG has been present in past FNAF games, especially FNAF 2 and UCN, but it's a lower percentage in comparison to this game and it happens in the harder later nights like 1020 mode. In this game, it can happen literally as early as night 2 or 3. That shouldn't happen at all. The gameplay just gets really boring because it also feels like nothing happens. I feel like more should have happened in the gameplay of this game. Maybe some more unique mechanics to spice it up. It fails to get interesting as the game goes on and the gameplay loop isn't very fun. Furthermore, some gameplay additions are pointless like the conveyor belt tab. All you have to do is either wait some seconds or just listen closely and you won't need the tab, or some additions feel like complete afterthoughts. The biggest example for me being how the puppet works. They did not put any time or focus into developing her mechanic. The fact you have to manually turn on and off the speaker to hear for her is so damn stupid. And that's my complaints for the first 5 nights from a gameplay perspective. I'd also like to mention that the jump scares in this game suck ass. They are too quick, the sound effect used is weak, and doesn't leave an impression at all. Very unmemorable jump scares, it pains me. And also the analog horror that the tapes after each night attempt to do just fails so much because it's full of the overused tropes this genre is known for, and it makes the final twist at the end so damn predictable. Before I discuss my least favorite part about this game, I want to touch on another aspect of this game that falls extremely flat. That's the story. The story in this game is dog shit. Now, the reason why this matters in comparison to other fan games like it is, because believe it or not, they actually tried to do something here, but I still really don't like how it turned out. The ending is so abrupt that you can't take in anything of value. It's just very strange and weird. That isn't even my biggest problem with this game's lore. My biggest problem is that by the end, it raises more questions than answers. Why does the ghost girl go after Pallbearer? What is the identity of this ghost? How did she die? What's her background? Why is she haunting juniors in the first place? What's Pallbearer's relation to juniors? How can a ghost be stabbed with a knife by a living human being? We don't know any of these, and if it's attempting ambiguity, it still fails because I don't get a feeling from these that's creepy or tense. I feel confused. When you have lore in a game, you must by the end satisfy the player with the questions they had, or at least some clues to the puzzle. It makes the universe feel more real and interesting, but with these, it just makes me not care for the story. And even with that, you expect me to take this game seriously with a character named Pallbearer? Come on! And speaking of taking lore seriously, this game attempts to have a sweet moment with the investigator and Pallbearer in a cutscene before night 4, and it feels so forced and fake. Why? Well, we don't know much about the investigator from a personality standpoint. It makes me not care for this character. For all I know, this character could be a deranged psychopath, and I wouldn't know because the game doesn't tell us anything about him besides his current situation and his relation to juniors. This character dynamic between him and Pallbearer is just simply not believable. Not enough time is even focused on these two. Pallbearer is just a typical give exposition to the player character for about 80% of the game, and part of that 80% is his appearances before nights 1 through 3. The story in this game is trash, and that is something that a patch simply cannot fix. And then we get to the worst part about this game, that being Night 6. Night 6 in this game is quite honestly one of the worst nights I've ever played in a FNAF game, both official and fan games. This night sucks. The only true good thing I have to say about Night 6 is the music, which I've already praised earlier as being my favorite music in this game's soundtrack. But besides of course the visuals, the twist of who the boss is, and I guess the ghost girl on the monitors being a little creepy, everything else is a fucking train wreck. The night is split into 2 halves, the first half basically being a direct copy of FNAF 2 but pretty much shittier and more jankier. This portion of the game is just so lazy, it's fucking lazy. Hell, when you beat this night, the 6 AM screen is the exact fucking same. Why the pure laziness? I've seen people attempt to defend this part of this game by saying it's meant to be a callback to FNAF 2 and honor it, but no? Not at all! Why would I call this a good callback to FNAF 2 when it's basically the same damn game, but with much more RNG and broken mechanics? FNAF 2 isn't this problematic, what the actual hell? I just don't understand. And there's the other half of the night, which is dedicated to a boss fight against Mangle, who also has an owl now? This half of the night is so annoying, it is frustratingly stupid. Why? It once again does a terrible job at explaining mechanics, especially the ghost girl and the cameras, which by the way, is also bullshit because of how much time you don't have to react to her. It is all so frustrating. Also, one more thing about Night 6. Why are the cameras activated by clicking? You can't have a hotkey or like FNAF 2 flipping it. That is so annoying, and that combined with the hotkey for the mask just makes it so much more annoying. Night 6 is complete shit, and so is the rest of the game. 75 to 80% of everything this game tried to do fell flat on its fucking face. The only good things it did were both audio and visual related, and speaking of that, here's this game's ultimate problem. This game is just quite simply another case of graphics over gameplay. It's an issue that has been going on with FNAF Fangames for a long time. Basically, it's when the graphics are the only aspect focused on with the game and not the actual gameplay and mechanics. The gameplay feels like an afterthought. It cares so much more about great visuals and that's it. Why does this problem still exist? Well, because it fucking works. A lot of bigger YouTubers that play FNAF, and especially the fan games, tend to play more fan games that look good than play good because it gets them views. The majority of people in the FNAF community really do care more about the visuals than the gameplay than you would think. It is mostly common in the young fans, but they're the ones watching the videos, and if there's a higher demand for graphics over gameplay fan games, they get made. Juniors is simply one of them. It was a fan game that had promise because of how awesome it looked in its trailers, but the gameplay simply turned out to be way more than just mid. It's just outright shit. One of the main reasons FNAF Fangame stood out to people initially was because of how, despite using FNAF's formula, The gameplay could still be engaging and arguably better than some official FNAF games gameplay. Finds of Candies, One of Flumpties, and hell, even games like Finds of Wario's. They all managed to get fans from the innovative gameplay, and those games are still being talked about to this day, regardless if it's positive or negative discussions. Juniors is simply going to be forgotten in the long run, and that's because it's a hardcore victim to graphics over gameplay, which is likely going to become one of the biggest examples of that problem with fan games, and ultimately, that's why Juniors is an awful FNAF fan game. I was so disappointed by Juniors when it was first released, I really was. And that's because even knowing about the pair situation, I still thought that Juniors was at least going to be a good experience. Unfortunately, as you already know from watching the video, I also just don't like the game. As I described in this review, this game has problems, and there's enough problems where I can't enjoy this game. I do want to say though, I respect almost everybody associated with the development of this game and their efforts. Even if I didn't like the final product, I still can notice their efforts and truly think they all make great stuff. And plus, the visuals, the animations, and the soundtrack, the three aspects everyone usually mostly contributed to, were three of the only aspects I liked about the game. I blame this game turning out the way it did because of Raymond and Derek's direction. They were the two that were primarily responsible for the aspects about this game I didn't like, mostly being gameplay and story related. In conclusion, I really don't like Juniors, and the game was honestly extremely overhyped considering the process of how it was released. If you like this fan game, that's fine, and I respect that, but at the same time, I just don't see and understand the appeal in this game outside the visuals and audio. Juniors just quite simply sucks. I hope the DLC's better, at least.